where the West begins in Fort Worth, Texas, to around the globe. You are listening to Talk of the Night. And now, your host, Paranormal Phil. Thank you, and good evening, good morning, wherever you may be around the world, around the globe, or even in your own backyard. I am Paranormal Phil, and later on in the show tonight, we're going to be joined by my guest, Joseph Lenard, as we talk about his book, Terror Strikes. We're going to get into terrorism, political stuff, conspiracies, all that good stuff. But first, up on the Talk of the Night website, under the story of the day, the Disinformation Governance Board becomes a big headache. The new Homeland Security new office, the new Homeland Security's new office, which was designed to be a interdepartmental working group, has made a splash, but for all the wrong reasons. This all started with a departmental working group and a way all Washington scandals start. Since the start of the creation of the Disinformation Governance Board, DGB, almost one letter away from KGB, but well, that's another story for another day, run by the Department of Homeland Security, there has been an outcry from the right. The DHS has had to address the allegations on multiple Sunday shows. The idea behind the board is that it was designed to protect free speech, privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties of all Americans, but that is not what it has become. Even the new director of the DGB, Nina Jankowicz, has been part of disinformation herself. This has caused headaches for the new board. And of course, you can read the rest of that story up on the Talk of the Night website by clicking on the link below the story of the day. So let's get into a little bit about my guest, and then we'll bring him on here. Joseph M. Lenard, a.k.a. J. Lenard Detroit, born in the 60s, very much a person of the 80s, lifelong, by choice, resident of, I'll butcher that name, Michigan, former information technology professional, political conservative issues, blogger, speaker, writer, vlogger, author of the book Terror Strike, which we are going to get into later tonight, social media 100K plus reach over before its news, Clout Hub, Free Talk, Gab, Getter, Liberty Centric, Locals, Minds, MeWe, Nextdoor, Parler, Political Chatter, Rescue Michigan, Spreely, Twitter, and several political activist websites, commentary writes. So please welcome to the show my guest, Joseph Lenard.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Phil. I greatly appreciate it. And you know what? I also actually kind of appreciate that this is a phone interview. I've been doing a lot of Zoom and Skype, and it's nice to actually to be able to sit here in my PJs to do an interview.
Yeah, well, I always tell people nobody wants to see my ugly mug.
Yeah.
So tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, you covered most of it. Again, I'm a former IT guy. I was born and raised in a southern suburb of Detroit. It's pronounced Wyandotte, after the Wyandotte Indian tribe that, had the land for some time. I played hockey, amateur hockey, when I was younger. My dad and my granddad on my dad's side both had polka bands, and I wasn't really interested in doing that, but I had the creative gene in me, at least, so, I wrote tunes and stuff like that, but that was years ago, obviously before the internet, so, I didn't have enough material, and it certainly wasn't good enough to approach a record label with, so I went in another direction with the writing, more short stories and novels. But Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, is the first one I really felt was of a a good enough quality and an important enough topic rather than just a general story, just pure entertainment. This is both historical importance as well as fiction. I call it faction. It's a fact and fiction blend.
Okay, so you do have factual information in there, but also kind of lead fantasy, almost a fantasy story of fiction.
Yes, yeah. Because of the topic, I felt it a good opportunity to educate as well as entertain, because our education system these days is just so poor. There's so much people don't know, and frankly, us older folks that we may have known but have forgotten. So it serves as a historical refresher or a historical education for younger readers, as well as some entertainment. I do the book with a book within a book format. I'm certainly not the first to do that, won't be the last to do that. It's a tried and true method of expressing the story. So my lead character, Martin, is a Detroit newspaper man, and he decides he's going to write a book about terrorism. So my book is his journey towards writing a book, and the factual portions of the book then basically amount to his researching actual terrorist events that he would then be considering putting in his story. And while it is a Southeast Michigan-based lead character, it is an international book. There is a chapter on Toronto, Ontario, Canada, a chapter on London, England, a chapter on Madrid, Spain, and a chapter on Tokyo, Japan. So this isn't just a U.S.-centric book. It's about terrorism everywhere.
And did you kind of model the main character kind of after you, or was it just a fluke? No, I don't want to say fluke, but trying to think of the right words, but kind of just like you decide, oh, well, I might as well write about somebody in the journalist business and everything. And it just happened, since I'm in Michigan, why not write about somebody from Michigan?
Right, yeah. The easiest way to write something is to write around something you know. So, and it was important for this to take place in Southeast Michigan because we have Dearborn, Michigan here, which is also known as Little Arabia. So that factors into the story, both the fiction and the factual. So it needed to take place here, plus that obviously made it easier for me to write because I know the area, as opposed to trying to set it in New York that I've only been to twice in my life.
Yeah, trying to write about some place that you don't know, like that's like me trying to say that I'm going to write a story about somebody in North Dakota when I was born and raised in Southern California. I've never been to North Dakota, so why would I?
Yeah, I mean, you can make up a lot of stuff, but it helps if there are some good historical things. And I also, it is a book on terrorism, a very serious topic, obviously, but there's a bunch of sub-themes, and there's also even a little bit of humor in it because, with as serious as things are, if you don't laugh a little or on occasion, you'll go crazy. And one of the chapters is about hell. Not the traditional hell you're thinking of, but Hell, Michigan. So I have a little fun with that chapter, but at the same time, there's very serious subject matter in that chapter called Hell on Earth.
Okay, so yeah, you play on the words of a place in Michigan, which I've heard many a times because I love watching videos of strange town names and stuff like that.
Yep.
I swear, as much knowledge as my head holds, I should look like the Megamind character.
Yeah, there is a real place called Hell, Michigan. There also is a place called Paradise, Michigan. So you can experience both hell and paradise in the same day when you visit Michigan.
Yeah.
And I kind of go into that a little bit, the fun part of that chapter, because you can literally, if you're making a trip to Michigan, for any reason, in the Lower Peninsula, I do really recommend you set some time aside. Visit Hell, Michigan. It's a wonderful little place. Go to have a burger at the saloon, go to the gift shop and get a postcard, and they will take out a lighter and singe the corners of the postcard so that when you send the postcard to yourself or whomever, it looks like it came from the pits of hell. It's literally singed, cool. And it will be postmarked. Hell, Michigan has its own post office and zip code, so your postcard you send will be postmarked from the bowels of hell.
That's awesome. All right, so how did you how and when did you get into writing about such a topic?
Well, this book is both literally and figuratively a realization of a dream. And by literally, I mean in 2006, when I actually first started writing the book, it came to me in a dream. So as other stories that I've written, another novel I've written, some of my short stories, they come to me in a dream, and then I commit the dream to paper. And the book didn't fully come together, though, in 2006. I got about halfway done, and it just wasn't coming together, so I set it off to the side. But then last year, doing all the Wuhan virus paranoia and my understanding and knowing that terrorism didn't stop, the dreams came back. So I thought, okay, that's a sign. I need to finish this book, and this book needs to come out now with these additional important things that have come into my mind. And one of the things that came to my mind that helped me finish it is, being a former IT guy, I say this book is like no other you've ever read because, one, I don't write the normal formulaic kind of story. Generally there's a story, you do this, there's this twist, and there's this reverse twist, and, they're laid out, and they're somewhat predictable, frankly, in my opinion. This book ain't like that because I shred the formula. I throw the formula out and said this is going to be a different book. And one way it's different is, again, being former IT and knowing no one under the age of 40 really knows life without the internet. So everybody knows what a blog is. And people read stuff online all the time. They're reading stuff on their phones all the time. So I came up with, and to my knowledge and my publisher's knowledge, I am the first person to ever put a blog within a book concept. So this, you're going to get different things out of this book than you've ever seen in any other book you've ever read.
Yeah, and of course I know all about the life before the internet because, heck, I'm pushing 50 next year, so I'll be 50 next year, so I know all about that time before that.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I said I know all about the time of life before the internet because of
that. Yeah. Well, anyone under 40 doesn't really know life without the internet, and younger people, you kind of need a a tag or a hook, an innovation. And I thought, that's perfect. Let's go with that because everybody knows what a blog is. And what I was able to do, the 9/11 blog and the others are actually blogs that I have written. So I took my blog, because you asked, is my character based on me? So in some respects, yes. In some respects, no. It's not. If you read all about Martin in the book, he doesn't mirror me in my life. But in that regard, I took my blogs, especially the 9/11 blog that I wrote in 2003, and just kind of reworked it a little bit here and there to be the character's voice rather than my voice. And it gets to show a little bit of a contrast between the thinking then, 2 years after 9/11, versus what we're living now, these years later.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you were a former information technology professional. Of course, mentioned in your bio and everything like that. But did it help play a part in writing the book, and did you incorporate that into the book?
Well, that itself, had no direct play other than the fact it was more my political activism over the years that did, because I've written online. I used to write for redstate.com. Most people know that site. I don't write at redstate.com anymore. All my stuff is now up at beforeitsnews.com. So my writing politically motivated articles certainly was a preparation. Plus, I've been writing stories my whole life, fictional stories. So the blending of political articles being reality and the short stories and the other novel that I wrote, fiction, played into this book. But the information technology stuff itself, other than the thought, let's use a blog within a book, doesn't really play.
Okay, I just wanted to see if that might have played a part into it, because sometimes people go write about some of their former past experiences and stuff like that and put it into the book.
Right.
I started writing a book myself, but I haven't worked on it for about 10 years now. But I was going to write about the paranormal dark side and use a lot of my experiences in the paranormal field and dealing with darker entities and stuff like that. But that's something I put on the back burner, and I just never really, I don't know if I really want to finish it or not, because I'm actually, well, one, I'm busy with this show. I'm not only the show's host, but I'm also the show's producer, the sound engineer, the webmaster, the voiceover artist, the promotion crew, and everything like that. So I do a lot, but also I'm trying to find time to finish a horror movie screenplay that I'm working on. So I got too many things going on at once.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is cyber terrorism too, but I didn't really go into that in the book. That could have been, a part of my IT aspect could have played into the book, but I didn't really go there, and hacking and all that sorts of thing. That's one of the threats I just didn't go into, but it is an important one that people need to be aware of. I mean, they could take down the electrical grid, or they could shut down our water supply. I mean, those are obvious real threats. I focus mainly on the threats of that would immediately kill you.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people don't think about that whole, like an EMP pulse and everything like that would shut down the electrical grid. And a lot of people would not know what to do if that happened. And of course, like me, I was in Boy Scouts when I was younger and everything like that. I had a scoutmaster who was an ex-Army Ranger, so I learned survival and everything like that. So now everywhere I go, I make sure that I have a plan. If, like here in Fort Worth, I have a plan to go somewhere where I can survive and without being in the big city and everything like that. I have that all designed out and everything like that. But it would cause chaos in the streets because a lot of people don't have that survival training. They don't know what they would do if things went down. And of course,
and it wouldn't even entail an EMP like we did to Iran. We engaged in cyber warfare ourselves against Iran and hacked their nuclear program and ramped up their centrifuges. So they spun so fast, they blew up. The same thing can happen with the electrical grid. If they hack into the grid, if the right or the wrong place, however you want to consider it, and actually could cause an overload of a system at a key grid point and overload the system, and it would melt down, and then that would resonate out to other parts of the grid because our grid is interdependent on, as most people will remember, I don't remember what year it was, but I mean, a large part of the northeastern portion of the United States went dark for a few days because of a scenario of one of the wrong pieces went down and it took out the rest of the grid for a few days with it.
Yeah.
As they worked around it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of when that happened, but that was that blackout that hit like New York and stuff like that.
Exactly, and it moved westward. The blackout even affected us in Michigan for a while, and that takes a while to fix. And unfortunately, with all the talk about infrastructure, they want to give free internet to everybody. Well, number one, the government has no authority to do that. And number two, if you let the government control that, that means the government gets to regulate that. If they're the provider, they get to regulate it. If you think we have problems with censorship now with the free market involvement of the internet, you wait till the government becomes your provider. But what we really need infrastructure is the hardening of the grid. I mean, that discussion has been going on ever since 9/11, and nothing ever gets done about it.
Yeah, and I just looked it up, and it was 2003 when that Northeast blackout happened.
I was going to say '02, so yeah, I knew it was right in that time frame, but I didn't remember exactly either.
Yeah, and of course, like not last year, but the year before, when down here in Texas we had that big ice storm, which we're not used to down here. People were without power. Luckily, I was lucky enough to live on the hospital's grid, so they couldn't really shut that down. So I was lucky there. But there were people that were without power for a month. And freezing temperatures, I mean, there was times when we actually hit minus 17 below with the wind chill. That's not normal for Texas.
No,
maybe out there in
not.
Michigan and everything like that, but yeah, not here. I mean, we had a day that we were at a height of, I think, -2.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard for us to deal with in Michigan, even, let alone, Texas or California or Florida that's not used to that.
Yeah. See, I'm from Southern California, so I'm from the desert area, so I'm used to the hot temperatures of 120 degrees in the shade and everything like that. So it doesn't bother me. Of course, it's a drier heat too, but it's something I'm used to. But when I'm not used to the cold, anything below 60, I'm freezing.
Yep. I know, it's all relative. It's relative to the climate you're used to. 60 degrees up here in the middle of winter, of course, is like a heat wave, and we're wearing shorts. But 60 degrees in the middle of summer, though, even, is darn chilly when you're used to 80 degrees. So it's all relative, even based on the seasons, let alone the region you're in. Because I love Vegas, and there's a chapter in my book about Laughlin, Nevada. I didn't want to write about Vegas proper because, too many people would be upset with me.
Yeah.
So I fictionalized some aspects of a portion of the book going on in Laughlin. But I love Vegas, and I used to vacation out there at least once every couple of years because it changes so often. But even in the summer, I mean, it gets really hot during the day there because of the surrounding elevations. Mm-hmm. And they call that's Clark County. I always joke that they should rename it to like Chicago is Cook County because you cook, or they should call it Skillet County because the surrounding mountains are higher and that's a lower plane. It's like you're literally cooking in a skillet during the day, but then at night it still gets darn cold out there.
Yeah, that's what happens in the desert. Why? I don't know. But anyways, let's get into some other things here. I got time for one question before we go to the commercial. But I saw that you were that you're a speaker. Where have some of the places that you've been to that you spoke to, and what did you speak about?
Well, that usually is regarding like political rallies or on behalf of a candidate kind of speaking, issues of the day and trying to promote certain political candidates. I haven't been speaking on the terrorism topic anywhere particular yet. And I don't know that I would be comfortable going too far out of it and delving in that because, I mean, I know what I know, but I also am smart enough to know that there is a lot that I don't know. So I only, want to speak to things I know, and I put a lot of research into this book to make sure that the things I talked about factually I was definitely speaking to from a place of knowledge and have fully researched.
Okay. Well, we're at the half, so we're going to be right back with my guest, Joseph Lenard, as we talk about his book, Terror Strikes and Political Stuff and Conspiracies after this. We'll be right back.
For your eyes reflect light from a fire that is gone, and your feet are the only things that drag you along. When you're low on love, it's too hot from it. When the words they said were the stones and Steve's bird in a cage, 100 miles underground. When the rubble is falling, you'll be singing aloud. Don't you feel it now? Your lungs are still breathing in air and out, and your feet are still hitting the ground. So you gotta hold on. You've gotta hold on.
Do you have a talk radio, Facebook Live, or YouTube show and would like guests for your show but don't know where to go to get them? Well, go to radioguestlist.com and sign up today. They have all different experts in different fields, and you can find the ones that are just right for your show. That's radioguestlist.com. Sign up today. It's free.
To advertise on Talk in the Night, send an email to talkinthe.night@outlook.com. Talk in the Night has plans to fit your budget. Get your product or business heard around the world by the Talk in the Night listening audience. Plans include 30-second spots and banner ads on the show's website and mentioned on the social media sites. So get your product or business heard around the world today. Shop the Talk in the Night merch store today and pick up one of the many products with 9 different designs to choose from. The store has men's and women's apparel, drinkware, houseware, and accessories. Pick up a t-shirt, coffee mug, or anything else on there and support the show today. Go to talkinthe.night.com to find a link to the merch store.
I promise I can take it. Let them fall like rain on my heart. And don't hold back today. I promise I will make it right. I'll take all of the blame. Oh, we used to fight on the same side, us against the rest. Now we're digging trenches and sweating, aiming for the chest.
And now, back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, Joseph Lenard, as we talk about terrorism and political stuff and conspiracies. But before we do, since we did mention the book in the first half of the show, I did put a recording of his ad for his book into the playlist here, so I want to play that so that way you can hear that for yourself.
It is a myth that terrorism stopped during COVID. Unfortunately, mainstream media opted to prioritize pandemic hysteria over promoting all news. Terrorism continues. Simply hoping that it doesn't affect you is not a strategy. The new book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, featured on The Author Show, is now available in paperback from bookstores, online, or as an ebook exclusively through Amazon Kindle. Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you by Joseph M. Lenard. Order today.
Okay, so that is the ad for the book and everything, and hopefully you'll go out and pick up that book if you're listening and everything like that. But I do want to get into some other things as well, because there is a lot of stuff happening in this political climate, and I feel that, I know you mentioned that you don't like to talk about some things and stuff like that without knowing the facts, but a lot of things I've dug down that rabbit hole, and I'm sure you have too, where we have learned a lot over the past decade even of what's going on, and more people seem to be waking up to that. Now, I saw that you're a constitutional conservative. What does that mean for those that do not know what that is?
Well, first let me say something about my name, because it's a quirk. Because you've said Joseph M. Lenard, and you've also said Joseph Lenard without the middle initial. And if you do go looking for me, you do have to look for Joseph M. Lenard, and Lenard is spelled without an O in it. It's Lenard. And the only reason I bring it up is I'm Joseph M. Lenard from Michigan, because oddly enough, there is a Joseph Lenard in North Carolina that also has some books out. And I obviously don't want there to be any confusion of my stuff and his stuff.
No kidding.
Because the last name, he spells the last name the exact same way. So that's why I have to had to make sure my middle initial is on this book. Otherwise, there'd be mass confusion.
Okay, yeah.
But,
I know there's a lot of people, surprisingly, with my weird name, that people have the same last spelling as me and the first name, and they're not related to me. It's like, really?
Yeah, I know. Isn't that weird? It's like, now, had I released my book in 2006, I would have beat him to my name. So, I mean, I'm still using my name. I frankly don't even actually know if that's his real name or not, or if he just weirdly, coincidentally picked that as a pen name. But had I published in 2006, I would have owned my name first. But since it didn't come out in 2006, he beat me to a couple of books in like 2008 and another couple in the last few years. But so back to the question you asked, I've completely forgotten now.
I asked that since I see that you are a constitutional conservative, what does that mean for those that don't know what that is?
Yes. Well, I mean, for one, let's start with conservative. That means a lot of different things for a lot of different people. Same with the term liberal.
Oh, I lost my guest here. We dropped him. Let's call him back here. And we'll get him back on. Oops, shoot. If you're listening, we're going to talk about something here, and we'll try to get him back on here in a second. I will email him and let him know the call dropped and get him back. And let's see. Let's reply. The call dropped. All right. So, while I wait for him to call back because I can't seem to call him again. Otherwise, it charges me. So, I'll wait for him to call me back. But for those that don't know, and I mentioned it in a thing here, that I don't support... Oh, there we go. Hello. Sorry, the call dropped.
Hello.
I was talking, and all of a sudden...
Yeah, all of a sudden, it's weird because you and I, let the audience in on a secret here, we were talking before the show and joking about how wonderful technology is when it works and how much of a pain in the butt it is when it didn't. And sure enough, my phone started beeping on me and you dropped off right in the conversation there. I joked with you about maybe it was the NSA.
Yeah, well,
so maybe they're trying to keep us from talking.
Yeah, probably, because considering my thoughts on things, and I'm not afraid of them. I mean, hell, they trained me. I'm former military, and they better be afraid of me. But
we were talking about conservatives and the labels. I mean, it means different things to different people. So the most important thing, I think, for me is that I am a constitutionalist. I believe in our founding fathers and their brilliance. We are not a democracy. We are a representative republic. And the brilliance behind the system they created, it wasn't perfect. And that's why the Constitution has the amendment process. But at the same time, things can go south through the amendment process. I'm a firm believer that the 17th Amendment should be repealed because, again, we are a representative republic. The brilliance of our system was that the United States House of Representatives is made up of people directly elected by the people of each district. The U.S. Senate is supposed to be there to represent the interests of the individual sovereign states. And the 17th Amendment destroyed that check and balance by making senators directly elected by the people. They're meant to be elected by your state legislature, who that you elect. They then appoint the senators, and if a senator isn't doing the right thing, they replace them. They can't pander directly to the people, and that has been a major check and balance that we have lost over the years, and how federalism has been distorted these last decades, my entire life. I'm going to turn 60 this year, but we've gone away from our founding fathers, and we need to get back to that. It is kind of where I stand as a constitutionalist conservative.
Yeah, see, and I stand on the Constitution because I swore an oath to it when I was in the military to protect and defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I still hold to that truth. Now, there are a lot of people in the political world that do not. I mean, they swear to it, but they don't uphold it. They do a complete opposite and destroy it. And I mean, yes, and I'm going to make this statement for anybody that listens, because I know people are going to disagree with me, and I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to disagree with you and stuff like that. But that's where we come together as people, is have this discussion, see what other people are thinking, what other people believe in, and maybe we can come to a consensus and come together as people rather than fight left versus right, black versus white, and so forth. And I think that's where we can come together as humanity, if we sit down and have this discussion rather than fighting amongst ourselves.
Well, yeah, I am going to disagree with you a little bit, because that is the brilliance of our system and the necessity of the sovereignty of the states, because you see it today, we're so divided. We're not going to reach a consensus on a lot of things. That's why the states were sovereign, and it was codified in the 10th Amendment. And like this whole Roe v. Wade discussion, I'm not going to get into it, only other than to make the point that if Roe v. Wade is overturned, because the federal government does not have the constitutional authority to be involved in that topic. It is a states' right issue, and that's why we have 50 sovereign states, that if you don't like something, you can move to another state that better suits your liking. But if everything is done by federal edict and federal dictate, we are not a representative republic anymore. We are a fascist, top-down controlled government.
Yeah,
and we were never meant to be that.
Yeah, and I do agree there. I mean, it should be left up to the states, so that way, like you said, people, if they don't like what's going on, like I moved from California about 4 years ago to Texas, because I was like, well, one, the prices were getting too expensive. I mean,
yeah.
Like, I think it was last month in the high desert area where there's only like one gas station or maybe two gas stations. I saw people out there that said that it was like $9 or $10 a gallon of gas. I was like, Jesus. But in Los Angeles, it's over $6, almost $7 a gallon. It's like the prices got too expensive. I mean, you're lucky if you got a shed for $1,600 a month.
Yeah, well, I've been out to thankfully I've been out to California before. I would never go there now. I have no intention of ever setting foot in California ever again. But I used to work for Kmart, as part of the information technology team, and that we had, of course, warehouses there, distribution centers, and I went out there in 2003 to work on the computer systems out there. And I mean, it's a lovely place to visit, but I certainly would never want to live there, and I don't even want to go back to visit now. But I was there for a month, and it was wonderful. So I got to see most of what I wanted to see. You know, I went and saw the Hollywood sign. I went to the Reagan Ranch and Library. I made it to Six Flags amusement park, wonderful park. The water parks that are out there are nice if they're not all shut down now because there's no water. But unfortunately, I didn't make it to the Nixon Library that I wanted to. But, the Santa Monica Pier, absolutely gorgeous. I mean, you drive through some horrible neighborhoods to get there, but the Santa Monica Pier is something you really want to see if you're vacationing in California.
Yeah, and of course, I grew up in I was born in the early 70s, and things were a lot better back then. But the one good thing about California, and that's about the only good thing about it, is the weather. I mean, in the spring, you can go skiing in the morning and surfing in the afternoon. That's about the only thing left good about California. And I still got family out there. I still got friends out there, and I don't know why, but they can have it. I will go out there for a visit, but that's about it. I'm staying here in Texas. That's where I want to be. I want to be out in the country. Eventually, I'll get there. Right now, I'm stuck in the city, but I did pick a fully liberal city like Austin or Dallas and everything like that, where everybody from California is moving there. I hate to see people destroying such a great state, but Texas, but it happens. People are allowed to move wherever they please. We can't stop that. I
wrote an article for Red State on that topic years ago about the expanding bluism. People are escaping areas with bad policy, but they are too stupid to realize when they get to their new city and state that they can't vote for the same idiots that destroyed where they were and the reason they left. You don't, turning where you are now into the same hellhole you escaped from is, insane. But yet it's happening in many places.
Yeah, and of course, like me, I no longer vote because I believe both political, this is just my opinion, both political parties are the same in everything like that. And it's sad to say, but it is the state of our current political society. But, and there's a quote that's often attributed to Benjamin Franklin, which it holds truth to, but it's not by him, and it's, I'm trying to think of the name, democracy is two wolves and a lamb deciding what's for dinner. And
exactly.
And basically, they're working together, both Republicans and Democrats. I mean, I got a shirt on right now that I designed when the whole lockdowns took place in 2020. Me and a group of people went out there to support a business that wanted to open. It was a bar, but we were out there we had AK-47s, AR-15s, handguns, and everything like that. And we were out there to show our support for a business that wanted to open. And so I made up a shirt that says, I don't support Republicans, I don't support Democrats, I do, however, support freedom. And that's where we should be, is we should be supporting freedom. And if we want to have people in office, get somebody that works for everybody, not just one side of things. But I don't, like you said, I don't think we're ever going to get there.
Yeah, well, like you said, democracy, two wolves and a lamb or a sheep. That's why we were never intended to be a democracy. We are a constitutional republic where the minority sheep or lamb has rights that the two wolves cannot take away just because they are in the majority. And as far as the two parties, at times the two parties are the same, but part of the reason that is our fault. And I do discuss this briefly in the book. Martin, the main character, they are looking at, hopefully in the future, moving to a more rural area. And since he's a newspaper guy, he tries to be true to journalism and be impartial. So he doesn't show his political side. But when they hope to move to a smaller town, he plans on becoming a Republican delegate. And the reason why the Republican Party is so full of rhinos, as we of course call them, is because we don't properly get involved. The party only has authority that we allow them to have. And if people don't get involved, you can't complain too much about what we got if you allow it to remain what it is by your non-involvement.
Well, see, I mean, of course, I'm going to disagree there. And like I said, we can disagree and have a civil conversation. But I don't see why, and this is just my thinking, maybe I'm wrong, and that's why I have the discussion, so that way we can see where other people come from. But I don't see why one party should have majority rule over somebody else. And I guess I consider myself more of a centralist. I mean, I started waking up to things happening in the world in 2008. Oh, actually, I lie. I started waking up about 2001, but I really dug into things in around 2008 because I actually ran for, or not ran, but I wrote in my name for president because I got tired of both political parties destroying this country. And I was like, we got to do something to bring this country back to the people.
Yep. Unfortunately, we are in a two-party system now. And that's why I say we have to be involved. You've got to be involved in one or the other to try to make a difference. Because I'm sorry if there are any libertarians out there. I know plenty of libertarians. I know people in the Constitution Party, the Taxpayer Party, but I'm sorry. Those parties will never, ever amount to anything. If all of these people that are constitutional-minded would get involved, we are the majority, and we could get full control of both parties if we actually got involved and stop this leftward lurch that we've been in for, the last 5, 6, 7 decades. Yeah. But unfortunately, again, I mean, it's just the two parties are too powerful. So I don't like the system, but I recognize the only way there's going to be change is to work within the system as it exists today until we can force the changes that we want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree there. I mean, like you said, they're too powerful. Like me, I knew, even writing in my name, I knew I was gonna get one vote. But I knew I was never gonna have it because the politicians nowadays are backed by special interests, by billionaires, the elitists, and everything like that. And
Yep.
people vote for that, and it's like, do you not see what they're doing?
Well, hopefully more people are finally waking up. And again, I mean, I used to say there's good and bad people in any and every party, but it's getting to the point where there's nobody good I can point to in the Democrat Party anymore.
I'll
and
agree
sadly,
there. I'll agree there.
there's a whole lot of bad people in the Republican Party, too, which is why I say if all of us would rise up and become precinct delegates and would attend the Republican Party conventions, these rhinos would be swept aside, and we could get the Republican Party back to the constitutional party it needs to be. Unfortunately, I see it as the only hope for America. Otherwise, both parties will keep moving further and further and further left until we stand up, take control, and say, no more.
Unfortunately, I think we've already reached that point, unfortunately, but that's just my thoughts on it. Now, talking about the evil side of the Democrat Party and everything like that, in 2016, you made enemies in the 2016 election. Who were those enemies?
Not sure quite where you're going.
I think I saw it on. I think when I saw it about on the website that you provided about, you mentioned something about Hillary Clinton and political. I think it was.
Yeah. The whole Russian collusion stuff started on Twitter before they attacked Donald Trump with he's a Russian asset malarkey. They floated that on Twitter, and yeah, I'm part of a group that's called the Mighty 200. Politico accused 200 of us out of 320 million Americans as being Russian assets. That was the start of the whole Russian collusion thing. So yeah, we call ourselves the Mighty 200. So yeah, I'm well aware of the whole Russian collusion false narrative because I'm one of the people they first started that on, and they saw that a lot of people were falling for that on Twitter. So that's when they had kind of expanded it to say and start accusing Trump of being a Russian asset. So I think that's what you're referring to, yeah.
Okay.
The Mighty 200 on Twitter, and if you go to tinyurl.com/JLD articles, that's where my articles are. You can find the one about the Mighty 200 and all this modern-day censorship and shadow banning really, hit full throttle in 2016, and that was the whole Politico and Hillary Clinton malarkey.
All right, well, we are at the top of the hour, but we'll be right back after the short commercial break with my guest, Joseph M. Lenard, got it right this time, as we continue talking about political stuff, terrorism, and conspiracies. We'll be right back.
Broken into, torn apart, worlds colliding, and there we are. Here I stand, painted red, with thoughts of whispers inside my head.
The weather is getting warmer and people are out and about. Well, if you love ghost hunting, now is the time to pick up some new gear. GoStop.com has a wide variety of equipment to choose from, and one of those items is Blue Buddy. He's back. The talking bear every investigator wants on their team. Click on the GoStop banner ad at the top of the show's website and pick up your Blue Buddy today. Go to spring.com and sign up to create your own design or choose from a design from one of the many creators on there. Spring has ways to integrate your store on social media, custom stores, and they have digital and physical products. While you're there, check out the Talk in the Night merch store. To get started with Spring today, click on the banner ad on the Talk of the Night website. Go to the show's website and click on the links for each of my guests and purchase a book or other product that they may be promoting. Without them, there would be no Talk in the Night. Whether you're interested in the paranormal, conspiracy, technology, health, relationships, or any other topic the show covers, my guests have something for you. Check it out today on talkingthenight.com.
Met a woman, got engaged, time passed, wedding day. Then my feet turned cold at the tone of those wedding bells. I felt bad, everybody got dressed up, but I knew I'd messed up, so I had to fess up that all I really wanted was just to get drunk as hell. So I jilted that poor woman and I got drunk as
Call
hell.
into the show, Skype, Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-1280. Now back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, Joseph M. Lenard, and we'll make sure that I get that right every time now. But anyways,
I appreciate that. I mean, I don't want to help the other guy sell books, right?
Yeah, true. All right, so we are at the top of the hour. So if you do have a question for my guest, you can call into the show like you heard there, using the Skype name Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-1280, or go over to Spreaker.com, sign up for a free account. It don't cost a thing. You don't have to record anything. And you can pop in the chat and say hi, let me know you're listening, ask a question there. And, of course, go to, once you sign up, go to Talk in the Night, click on the live show, scroll down a little bit, there's a little chat bar. Pop in, say hi. You don't have to ask a question, just let me know you're listening, I do welcome questions and everything for my guests. So, before the show, before the break, before the show, I swear, it's been a long day. But anyways, that's where I get all confused. But anyways, before the break, we were talking about your political beliefs and everything. But I do want to get into, because I don't want to stay too much on one topic, because, I write down enough questions to last a 5-hour show, but that way I can pick and choose where I want to go with the conversation. So I want to get into terrorism, since the book is about terrorism. And what do you believe the biggest terror threat to America is?
Well, that's hard to say. Because there are so many groups that can be out there just forming now that we don't even know yet. So it's hard to pinpoint that. We have to be on our guard, awake and alert and prepared for the known threats and the unknown threats. And like I say I said earlier, this is an international book, and terrorism is happening everywhere. But one of the points I wanted to make that's important to make, and one of the reasons why I wrote the book, is that unfortunately, some people are under the delusion that terrorism somehow went away because of the Wuhan virus hysteria. Well, it hasn't. Terrorist actions and attacks have been happening. You're just not hearing about it in the news because the media has been focusing on the Wuhan virus hysteria to boost their ratings and, keep sucking up their ad revenue. The topic du jour. So it's still happening. You just haven't been hearing about it. And again, that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book as a warning. You have to be alert. Now, I'm not wanting you to be completely stricken by terror and wanting to bury yourself in your home. That's certainly not what I'm saying. Part of the point of this book is that you do indeed have to live your life. If you allow yourself to be paranoid all the time and not willing to go out, the terrorists win, as the saying goes. That's their point. They want to terrorize you to change your behavior and hopefully try to, do things to appease them. But the problem with that is, you feed a monster, it's still hungry the next day. You give an enemy an inch, they're going to go for that next mile. And like I say in the Naperville, Illinois chapter, a character, Teresa, it strikes home to her in the book, and she realizes that she's been an ostrich more than the mama bear she needed to be. Live your life, but be aware of your surroundings. And that doesn't just apply to terrorists, but criminals of all kinds. Criminality of all kinds is a sub-theme in the book. You've got to be aware of the things that are going on out there, and especially with all the defund the police crap and the no cash bail. The Democrats are turning around and letting criminals right back out on the street to reoffend. Well, in your week on crime, guess what? You're going to get more crime. So crime is up everywhere. Don't be paranoid about it. Be aware of it and try to take precautions as best you can while still trying to live your life.
Yeah, and of course, there are a lot of different answers to that question, like you said. I mean, look at Antifa, BLM. I think I saw something the other day where Patrice Cullors, one of the founding members of BLM, was crying because Candace Owen went to her door with a camera to ask her questions. Friend of her life. It's like, really, a camera? You got exposed is what happened. And
yep.
But I mean, Antifa. I mean, I think like in January 6th, Antifa integrated with that group, and of course, I heard an interview that you did. I listened to part of it where you said that they were let into the Capitol, which everybody has seen. But of course, mainstream media paints in a different direction a lot of times, but especially the leftist media. But they painted it in a different light, like these were terrorists that came in there to destroy, kill, maim, and everything like that. And that's not what happened, really.
No, everybody can see the videos for themselves. I wrote an elaborate article on the Forbes News about that. And indeed, I mean, you can find the video footage. No one has been charged with insurrection. the only people that have been charged with things are minor trespassing. And there's a lawyer here in Michigan, David Coleman. He's on one of the local radio shows often. He formed the Great Lakes Justice Center. It's kind of like a local version of Jay Sekulo's, ACLJ. And I called in and we had the conversation with him. If I were a defendant, the first thing I'd demand my lawyer do is get the videos of the Capitol Police moving the barricades aside and waving people in. And literally, there were cops at the doors holding the doors open, waving people in. They could have sealed those doors and nobody would have got in. They didn't do that. They held open the doors. It can't even be trespassing if you're waving me into the building. And the only people who, there were acts of destruction, property damage, but those were Antifa plants. I mean, they have been exposed. It's not wild, speculative conspiracy theory. We have pictures of these people, and they have been identified, and they were Antifa plants. They were the ones doing the property damage, but miraculously, none of them have been charged with actually engaging in property destruction. It was all an incitement. It was all a setup. But specifically, you mentioned Antifa and BLM. If we had a realistic government, a government that was actually looking out for the people and that was actually honest, BLM and Antifa would be labeled organized terrorist groups, and we would go after them and their funding. Because, I mean, they literally are burning down, or they haven't recently, but they were burning down cities.
Yeah, I mean, the mainstream media is covering something else.
Terrorism.
Yeah, the media is covering something else to kind of hide that fact, especially with the whole Russia-Ukraine thing, which I do want to try and get into tonight too. But because I was going to ask you a devil's advocate question, which I always do to my guests, because I love throwing them off their game. That's just who I am. But I was going to ask about, do you think that this might have all been a setup, but with them, the Capitol Police letting these people in, knowing that that's what was going to happen?
Oh, absolutely. Again, the video evidence shows it. Obviously, they were given orders. Who gave the orders to do that? The Capitol doors are electronically sealed. No one could have gotten into that building unless somebody in the security office released the electronic locks. And again, there's plenty of video. It's not a conspiracy. You can see it with your own doggone eyes if you're willing to open them and literally see the Capitol Police personnel holding the doors open for people to come in.
And of course, there's a statement by Ronald Reagan. I know this quote to be true because I've heard it. It's in video; people can see it. He said that once said that the 9 most terrifying words in the English language is "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And help who? That's the question.
Help. Unfortunately, we've got a system lately where they're helping themselves, and that's the problem. They're not representative of the people anymore, and part of the problem is I support Convention of States, and I know some people have the paranoid position that there would be a runaway convention. You read Mark Levin's books, that isn't going to happen. But the only way we are going to get term limits and a balanced budget amendment to help stop some of this nonsense is through an Article 5 Convention of States. And we have to have those constitutional amendments, or this country is going to be clowered and pivoted into bankruptcy. And that's the Democrat strategy, clowered and pivoted. If you don't know those names, you need to Google it, or skip Google, because Google is useless. Google shadow bans me. You won't find my book if you Google search it, because I'm shadow banned. You won't find my articles via Google because they're shadow banned. But if you go to DuckDuckGo, you'll find all kinds of stuff about me, and you'll see my book because, you know, they don't censor. And I kind of forgot where I was going with that, but
go ahead.
I think you know what I was saying, even though I kind of my train of thought has kind of jumped the rail.
You hit that squirrel moment.
Yeah, exactly. I love that movie. That's a great movie too. My sister and I do that all the time with each other. All of a sudden, you know, it's out of the blue. We'll say squirrel.
Yeah, it's so widely known about that everybody references that scene in the movie. It's like you get distracted, squirrel.
That is a classic. Whoever thought of that wasn't paid enough.
Yeah. Now, of course, we talked about terrorism and everything like that, and now I forgot where I was going. Squirrel.
It's contagious. It's like yawning.
But I'll forget where. I'll sure it'll come back around. It's got a long way to go in my head, as much as information is up there. But of course, we're talking about conspiracies and everything like that, and the word conspiracy is thrown around quite a bit and used in the wrong context a lot of times, because there are conspiracies. There's conspiracy facts, like I heard in the show that I listened to earlier to kind of get some of these questions, that like talking about a baseball game where the owners conspired to get fans in there and stuff like that. But the way it's been used today is been used in the wrong context, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Now, there's big conspiracies and there's small conspiracies. Yes. I went into that in depth with the Lizard News Network podcast. That must have been what you probably sampled.
That was it.
Now, conspiracy in the dictionary standpoint, I mean, if I'm not married any longer, but let's say, you know, I had a wife and kids. Me and the wife talk about where we're taking the kids for dinner. Technically, in the basic dictionary sense of the word, that is a conspiracy. That is a benign conspiracy. And like you mentioned, the baseball game, let's say you're in Dallas. If you like the Houston Astros and I come down to Texas, I give you a call, say, let's get tickets behind home plate for the next Astros game. Technically speaking, that's a conspiracy. We're conspiring to do something.
Yeah,
those are benign conspiracies. Then there are the criminal conspiracies, which are a whole other thing, and why we have RICO laws. But most people blow conspiracy or conspiracy theory into this major malevolent thing, as if everybody is getting on jets and flying off to Dr. Evil's secret lair to conspire behind the scenes. In this modern day and age, conspiracies don't have to happen that way. We've seen that with Hillary and her deleted emails. She was conspiring with the Russian collusion thing and the fake Russian dossier. That was a conspiracy, but they weren't meeting in some secret lair to do that. Conspiracies can happen when like-minded people just for their own self-interest, also do things. It's like Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
You know, Agenda 21 or whatever you want to call it.
It's now considered 2130.
Yeah, it's not a wild conspiracy theory. You can literally go to Klaus Schwab Economic Forum website and read the doggone evidence for yourself. It's like I said before, it's there if you open your eyes. Now, not everybody is directly involved in conspiracy to make that happen. Like some people, the ruling elite, like power, they like control, and they will do something that is against our interest because it's their best interest. They like power, they like control, and if they see globalism or the World Economic Forum or whatever, Agenda 21, as long as they remain in power and have the control, they're more than happy to let that happen. But it doesn't mean they're all, again, meeting in Dr. Evil's secret lair and having Illuminati meetings to discuss all that.
Yeah, and I do want to bring up something just to kind of lighten the mood here a little bit. I would never go to an Astro game unless it was the Dodgers playing them, but because I'm a Dodgers fan. Sorry, I mean, I cannot stand the Astros as well as I can't stand the Giants either, but...
yeah, but the point being is that they've turned conspiracy, like you alluded to, into something. Everything surrounding a conspiracy is nefarious. And now I forgot where I was going to go with that.
Yeah. Well, there are some nefarious groups out there, like you mentioned, like the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab and stuff like that. They even got an ad out there that people can see. You'll own nothing and be happy about it. I mean, really? Do you not see that? It's like they don't want you to have any power. They want all the power for themselves. And there are world leaders that have attended Davos and everything like that. And until I dug into it a little bit, I thought almost thought that the World Economic Forum Davos meeting and everything was like Bilderberg previous, and but they just keep changing to the name. But no, it's two separate things. But anyways, I mean, there's world leaders there that have appeared. Trump's been there, Biden's been there, Putin has been there, Zelensky has been there, and just because I mentioned those is because with the whole thing with Russia and Ukraine, I mean, they've all been to this meeting, and of course we don't get an inside look to what all they talk about there, but they're not hiding it anymore. But I still... No,
they're not. And I remember where I was going to go. It's like with the Hunter Biden laptop and what you were alluding to with the word conspiracy now. They use it to attach to anything that they want to hide the facts regarding. The Hunter Biden laptop certainly is real. It exists. The evidence is out there. Bob Alinsky and others have confirmed the Biden crime family activity. Since you mentioned Ukraine, we all seen the video of Biden threatening the Ukrainians that if you don't fire the prosecutor, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. It's right in your face. Yeah. But people are so suckered and conditioned like Pavlov's dog when they ring the bell and say the word conspiracy that they're willing to close their eyes, their ears, and their minds and not pay attention to what's happening right in front of their face.
Yeah, of course, I get labeled a conspiracy theorist when I talk about this stuff sometimes. And it's like, really? I'm presenting the facts here. I'm showing you the evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was a lawyer...
But again, so many people have become conditioned that all they got to do is, like I said with Pavlov's dog, ring the bell, use the word conspiracy, and people close their minds. And it's like how the left always does when they're losing an argument, they can't talk policy. What's the first thing they do? The other Pavlov dog bell, racist. You're a racist if you say anything they don't like, even if you're speaking the truth and you got the evidence to back it up. They will scream you're a racist because, again, morons have allowed themselves to be conditioned to fall for that deflection.
And like I said, I think it's a lot has to do with propaganda from mainstream media and everything like that. Because the U.S. government has been using mainstream media to propagandize their agenda. And, or at least that's my thoughts on it. And I see a lot of it. Whether you're watching Fox News, whether you're watching CNN, MSLSD as I call it.
Yeah.
Always
I call them the MSNBCils. They're imbeciles, so I call them MSNBCils.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, I've seen so many things. Like I said, I've woken up since shortly after 9/11. I actually went up there to kind of help out with the thing after the fact, clean up, and I wasn't up there long, but luckily I didn't really suffer. I think I was up there for 1 or 2 days. I can't remember. It's been so long, but I was up there to kind of help after, because I was living in Nashville, Tennessee at the time. I was trying to break into the country music business as a singer-songwriter. Never went anywhere with that. But, so I said, I was off work. I said, I got to go up there and do something. And then a couple of years later, I started seeing things like digging into more of what people would call conspiracy theories, but it's out in the open. Like, talking about 9/11, I mean, yes, people saw the planes fly into the towers and everything like that. You can't doubt that because there's video proof. But, like, there was a video where BBC was reporting on the collapse of World Trade 7 before it even collapsed, and it was in the background. And people, I don't know if have ever woken up to that propaganda that BBC put out.
Yeah. Well, the problem with two things: the media, and I've only ever been to New York City one time, and it was actually August of 2001, and I was there to go to IBM for some computer training, and it's like after 9/11 happened, I was like, wow. I mean, it's just coincidental. And I went and I saw the Trade Center while I was there and all that. And it's like, if it would have been a month later, I mean, I could have been right in the middle of all that if things would have just fallen slightly different. And I mean, that greatly impacted me insofar as that, because it's like, wow, I could have been in the middle of all that. And that, just the horrific thought, thinking about it is horrible, but to have been there and seen it even after the fact, like you said you were, that's very impactful. But insofar as the media, the government doesn't even need to really the media to peddle the deep state propaganda, because unfortunately, most of the media are left-wingers, just like the government deep state. Conservatives or constitutionalists, free market people, tend to go into regular businesses. We're not interested in going in government and being involved in that. So unfortunately, the people who are lured to the government are deep state thinkers. They want power. They want control over people. That's why the deep state is the way it is. It's comprised of mainly people with that mindset. They gravitate to that. And the media is a lot the same. They have the same mentality. For whatever reason, there just aren't journalists anymore. Activists have gone into the media. So the media itself is full of a bunch of activists. And one of the reasons why Martin is a journalist in my book, and I talk about those sorts of things. We probably will never get those institutions back. They are just like-minded people, so they cover for one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course they're owned by groups like Vanguard and everything like that, and they're pushing that agenda that they're higher ups, the elitists, not so much the government, but the elitists that are the special interest in government. So it kind of plays a part. But I mean that those people at the head of these companies want to push that propaganda. But we'll get into that after the last commercial break of the night. But we'll be right back with my guest, Joseph M. Lenard, as we continue talking about all this political stuff, and we'll be right back.
We were running through the fields, you had flowers in your hand. We were all chasing phantoms. Baby, you would hold them still and I'd grab on. Yeah, well, if you're scared of the dark, let the rundown street lights be your stars. And then picture swings in the park, and I'll swing with you. Sing it with me. Sing it with me. And we'll go howling at the moon. It's no use living if you're already dead.
Do you need music for your radio show, podcast, or YouTube channel, but need a music license to play it on your show? Well, go to artlist.io and check out the plans they have. They have 3 plans to choose from: personal, unlimited, and enterprise. All the music that you hear on the show is from Artlist, and there is a banner ad on the show's website. Check it out today. Do you love the strange, unusual, and weird unexplained mysteries? Do you like reading about the paranormal and other happenings? Well, I have the website for you, unexplainedmysteries.com. On there you will find so much, such as the latest news and articles, forums, news with video, and so much more. That's unexplained-mysteries.com, or you can click on the banner ad on the show's website to take you right there. Do you love history? Do you wonder what happened on this day in history? Well, check out history.com/this day in history and find out what happened on this day in recorded history. You can also click on the image on the Talk of the Night website under This Day in History and check out one of the many things that happened. The show's website lists a different event in history every day, so check it out today.
Hiding in my far-off distant plans, I see a house with people I don't love that I call accident. Spare me from a closed eyes existence. Is it doomed to fall into?
Call into the show, Skype Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-1280. Now back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, Joseph M. Lenard. Also, if you want to call in, again, you heard the phone calls, go over to Spreaker.com. Everything, pop in the chat, say hi, let me know you're listening. I do interact with all my listeners and everything like that. If you do mention that you're listening, if you don't mention you're listening, I can't interact with you. So we were talking about media, mainstream media and everything like that, and the agenda that they pushed before the break. And like I mentioned, Vanguard, I forget, I tried to remember what news media outlets that they run and everything. I think it's CNN, NBC, and some others, but I would have to look into it. I got so much knowledge up here that sometimes it gets pushed back to my subconscious where I'll store it until I really need it. But I think they have that agenda to push, and then, of course, it goes into special interests.
Yeah, and, one more thing about, I mentioned, it just boggles my mind. This is where I wanted to go. I had another minor brain fart there, but I remember now. It boggles my mind that there are some people out there still so naive that they believe there are real journalists still. And I'm sure there are some. There are a few. There are a few good ones, like Laura Logan is one of them. It's a true, honest journalist and willing to look at everything and report both sides and truly let us decide, present the facts. But another reason why my book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You, is unlike any other, is I pay homage to other books and also movies in my book as kind of added material outside of my book. Martin, my character, refers to Bernard Goldberg's book from years ago, decades ago now, Bias. He was really the first to sound the alarm about how far the bias was becoming in the media. And if you're unfamiliar with that, again, Bernard Goldberg, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist himself, came out with a book called Bias. Ann Coulter kind of stole his book later and did a thing of her own called Slander about bias in the media, which was really just Bernard Goldberg's book, but with a bit more hyperbolic rhetoric. But Bernard Goldberg, being a real journalist himself, lays bare the media bias and lays out the case in his book. And then, like I also say, my character Martin mentions some movies, important movies to see regarding mainly the topic of terrorism, so that because not everybody reads, I wanted to keep my book fairly short, and then again to provide kind of bonus material, side material, other things you can go hear and see that also relates both fact and fiction, so that I didn't have a 700-page book. You know what I mean? That would be unrealistic for people to want to read that, and especially in this day and age of Biden inflation, people wouldn't be able to afford a $50, 700-page book. I wanted to keep the cost of my book at $20. That's why it's the size it is, so it would be a reasonably priced book for people.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of media now is, a lot of people are, and I notice a lot more people are turning to independent media, people covering things on their own rather than paying attention to like CNN. Like CNN had to drop CNN Plus because people were not turning into it. They've lost their credibility. So people are turning to independent media to try and find the answers. Now, does it happen in independent media? Yes, it does. I mean, they're biased to a certain extent. Where, like me, with my show, I try to give everybody a platform, whether I agree with them or not, because I do want people to hear both sides and hear different opinions. That's what journalism should be. Exactly.
Presenting it all in facts and evidence, and let people understand and decide for themselves. And it goes back to, you'd previously mentioned the governance board, the censorship board, literally George Orwell's Ministry of Truth. It's the wonder of the internet. Like you said, we independent reporters and independent channels can now exist on the internet. And the ruling elites do not like that. They cannot control that. And that's why I go back to what I said earlier. The government has no authority to be involved in the internet. And if you allow the government to spend $1 trillion to provide broadband service to everybody, guess what? The government spent the money, the government did it, the government owns it, then the government can control it. And we cannot allow that to happen. And again, why they are creating literally Orwell's Ministry of Truth to shut down the independent voices that you are talking about, the independent channels that you can get to on the internet to get alternative news.
Yeah. And of course, there's one that I listen to quite a bit just to kind of find out what's going on, because I know I'm never going to get that kind of answer from the mainstream media and everything like that. Of course, I don't believe everything that he says. I disagree with him quite a bit too. But is Brian Young from High Impact Flicks, and but I do support his right to his opinion, but he's trying to produce the facts and let people decide for themselves, and that's what I applaud him for, is because he's not saying this is what you should believe. He's saying, here's what I've seen, here's the video proof, here's the written proof, and lets people make up their mind for themselves. Like I said,
yeah. As far as the broadcast channels go now, I too, you mentioned Fox. The only shows I watch on Fox anymore are the 5, and I record that so I can skip over the idiots. I can, use the remote with the DVR and skip over idiots like Reinaldo Rivera, as I call him, or Juan Williams, or Jessica Tarloff. But I love listening to Greg and Jesse on that show. And I watch Gutfeld regularly because I've been saying for years we need something like that. And I used to be a big fan of Red Eye when it was on Fox at 3 a.m, because we need people who can present things in a fun way, still presenting facts, but also have fun with it so that it's not so serious all the time. Because like the Bill Maher's and why they have all the late shows, which aren't funny anymore, but, you know, they took over those because you can get information past people's defenses if you present, there I go again, not present it in a comedic fashion. You get people through or past people's defenses. And that's why, and I have a comic relief chapter in my book, but I mainly watch Newsmax or One America News, and there's also a new channel popped up on my dish. I use Dish Network, called News Nation. They have, you know, some rerun programming, but they're hard news. They have a News Nation rush hour on every day at 5 o'clock that I record, and I really like the way they're presenting the news. They are what Fox News used to be.
Yeah, and like I said, they've kind of been bought out by these elitists, by the power of money. And like we were talking earlier about asking the question about the biggest terror threat to America, and I think one of those is the Federal Reserve and the IRS. I mean, since that came online in 1913, inflation has jumped to the point where prices are jumping so high, and of course the media is blaming it on Russia, and the White House is blaming it on Russia. It's like, really, do you not see the real enemy behind the gates, which is the central bank banksters and the elitists?
Well, getting off the gold standard, of course. I mean, that really started the destruction of our dollar. And it drives me crazy, the people on the left, these fascocrats, as I call them, or socialists, communists, whatever you want to call them. I've got an article comparing them to the fascists, because to me they are more fascist than socialist or communist. And I back that up in my story, because the Democratic Party platform literally has 28 planks that are the same as the old National Socialist Deutschland Arbeiter Party, the Nazi Party. These people are fascists, literally. And again, and we see that with them creating the Ministry of Truth so they can control the narrative. From gun control to health care, they claim it's about health care. It's not about health care. It's about power and control, and they learned that from Hitler and the Nazis. They did the same thing in Germany, socialized medicine, because then they get to say, if you do not toe the party line, we'll withhold the health care from your son or your daughter or your spouse. So it's about not about health care, it's about power over you, an ability to control you. So they are literally modern-day fascists, and everything they do just reinforces that point over and over and over these days.
Yeah, and I do want to make one last point before we start wrapping up things with you, because we are like 10 minutes till just about. But I do, like I said, I do write down a lot of questions about to kind of go where I want to go, and sometimes I don't get to everything that I want to talk about. But we did talk about the World Economic Forum earlier, and I wanted to talk about COVID and everything like that, or as I've heard it called, the cerveza bug. But anyways, I don't know if you've ever heard of Event 201. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it, but I mean, it took place 2 months before even the coronavirus was in the news media, and and talking about the World Economic Forum wanting to go to a digital cash system and everything like that, I'm wondering if it was all planned just to get there.
Well, now that's a tough thing. I don't want to chalk everything up to conspiracy. Now, I expect our government and the think tanks to war game, more or less. Now, you have to plan for things before they happen. You know what I mean? So a government agency saying we're making plans for if a pandemic occurs, because they've certainly happened in the past, we know one would happen again. I would expect our government to do some things to prepare and plan. So does that mean they knew and actually were preparing for the fact, knowing full well the Wuhan lab would leak the virus? You know, that's a whole other rabbit hole to go down. Now, I absolutely, positively believe that the virus did leak out of the Wuhan lab. Now, whether we want to argue it was on purpose or purely an accident is a whole other discussion, and I'm not going to go down that road.
Yeah.
But it's clear it came from a bat at the local market is clearly bull.
Yeah, that story has been disproven plenty of times. It's like they changed it from the bat to something else and then to something else. It's like, really? Can you not get it? Well, then, of course, liars can't get their story straight because then they have to tell another lie to get out of that lie and so forth. And that's where truth is. What is the statement I'm trying to think of? And I'm drawing a blank. Truth is the new hate speech. That's it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, again, to go back to Orwell, I don't specifically mention 1984 in my book, but I do mention Orwell's Animal Farm to make the point of some are more equal than others. And that goes to what we're speaking about with the ruling elite. And I don't understand why people are so enamored with socialism, so ignorant to history. Socialism and communism makes everybody poor except for the ruling elite class. And guess what? You're not part of it. So you're going to be in the poor group.
Yeah, like George Carlin says, it's I forget what he says, but people can Google it, but he says something about it's a big party and you're not part of it or invited or something like that. I forget the whole thing, but I want to thank you for coming on tonight and tell the listeners where they can find out more about you and the book.
Thank you. The easiest thing is now, obviously, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You is available at Amazon. I know a lot of people like to avoid Amazon, though, so it's available through Books A Million and other places. You could go to your local bookstore if you still have one near you, and they can order it for you direct also. But I also want to plug that I have a specific website for the book. It's terrorstrikes.info. So if you want to buy the book direct from me, I will get you an autographed copy. So that's certainly something you're never going to get from Amazon. So I'll throw in free shipping. So if you go to terrorstrikes.info and buy a book, I will autograph the book for you. And also, I have an author website that my publisher put up. It's Joseph M. Lenard. And again, there's no O in Leonard. josephmleonard.us. So those are the best places to go to learn more about me or learn more about the book. And again, if you want a autographed copy, go to terrorstrikes.info/buy, and you can get an autographed copy. Because the likelihood I'm going to be doing a book signing near you is probably pretty slim, but you can still get an autographed copy of the book through the website.
Okay. And, of course, it's linked up on the Talk of the Night website. Up at the top of the page, there's a banner ad for pick up a copy of Terror Strikes. Just click on that. It'll take you right to terrorstrikes.info.com, his website, as he mentioned. And you can read all about him and pick it up there. So, again, thank you for coming on the show and discussing this. Like I said, I know we disagreed in some parts, but that's what makes this great, is we can disagree and talk about this, but we can also have a civil conversation also.
Yeah, well, we were on the same page on most things.
Yeah. And like I said... Go ahead. I was going to say...
I really appreciate you having me on, Phil. It's a great honor to be able to be on your show to talk about the book and other things. And one last thing I want to throw out there is, again, we've kind of alluded to, it's a book about terrorism is the main thing, but it is not only about that. There's a lot of subtopics in there. We hit on only a few of them, and I like to say that this, even though it's about terrorism, it's not a book about death, but about life and living, and those both foreign and domestic, and we've discussed Antifa and BLM and others tonight, that want to deprive you of your life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So it's about those who hate America, and there's a lot of people in our own country that hate our own country. So they're in there too. It's a pro-America book.
Okay, yeah, and I do want to mention something that I didn't get to real quick before I mention what I got coming up tomorrow, because we're down to 3 minutes till. But there is a site that I learned of that you can go and check and see if you're shadow banned on Twitter. I will send that to you in email if you want.
I used to be shadow banned. I knew I was. Actually, you can find me in the search bar now, but if you want to look me up on almost all of the social media platforms, I'm J. Lenard Detroit on virtually every social media platform there. So follow me on Twitter, to Getter, to Parler, to MeWe, and Spreely, and, all those Rumble.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again. I do want to get this out before we run out of time here. So tomorrow night we are going to be joined by my guest, Tony Green, as we talk about hypnosis, psychic healing, and being a psychic medium. We'll also get into her radio and TV shows. You can find all the links for her up on the Talk of the Night website. Also, be sure to follow the show on all the show's social media sites: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, YouTube, LinkedIn. It's all up on the Talk of the Night website, talkofthenight.com. So until tomorrow night, when I welcome my guest, Tony Green, I shall see you on the dark side. Good night from Talk of the Night. Shoot, if I can get... That's the play, right? So I'll see you on the dark side.
Darkness has fallen. Turn on the radio, and you hear him talking. Listening to what he has to say, all about the paranormal and all of the things. When he sounds off, you can hear